Michael Persh, good morning.
Good morning, Michael. It's Brian Cat.
Hello, Brian. How are you?
I'm a bit late. I had a couple of interviews to do, and I got online with somebody, and it was one of those ones where you say, "Listen, I really have to go because of," and they go, "Yeah, well, right, okay, just one more thing," and because it never does. It never is one more thing. It's always 10 things. So I do apologise for ringing a bit later than I was supposed to, but it was out of my anything short of hanging up on this person was my only other choice.
That speaks of your popularity, mate. They just want to keep talking and talking.
That speaks of them wanting to talk.
It is great to say hello, mate, and it's great to have you coming back with that Russell Morris character to see us in Adelaide again.
That's right. Are we online? Are we on air? Are we?
No, we're recording. We'll edit and go out tonight.
Good. Yes, I'm coming back with Ratbag 1A. My old mate, my very old mate, and we do a couple of runs a year. Actually, go out and thrash around, and it's bloody good fun. It's good fun, I think, because if you look at the show, I suppose we've got enough hits between us so that it looks like it's back-to-back hits, or it is. And so that's sort of fun from the audience, but also because we've known each other so long, we've got so much on each other that in a relation that's basically based on sarcasm, we get a few zingers in on each other on stage, and the audience kind of play along with that and get into that too. So it's usually a really fun night.
And the wonderful thing, Brian, that you guys do is you not only do each other's tunes, which people would expect, but you also pull a lot of obscure tunes out of the hat, some 60s tunes that maybe we haven't heard, and that's really a lot of fun to have something that we maybe not expect to hear.
Yeah, I think so. I think, if you can play it safe and just say, okay, we'll just always play those, and that's all right, because to a large degree, I suppose that's what an audience of our age group comes along to hear. And very often if you say, we'd like to do a couple of new tunes, you can hear them go, oh, no, they're going to do new songs. But the reality is that if we, in the middle of, a bunch of our songs, if we throw in an old Stone song or something that we just love to death, the audience generally will love it as well, because we all kind of come from the same period, So, if we pick an old classic from the 60s and play it, then that'll be something that's in their line of fire, if you like.
Indeed. But you guys have recorded some new material recently, which is lovely, because a lot of recording has really changed in recent years, and a lot of artists don't have the opportunity to do that. But you and Russell, the Wild Bulls and Horses CD was received very well indeed.
Excuse me. There's an added point. Yes, it was, and but that was a bit of a punt for us, because not only was it all new songs, but they were all new country songs, and it really came about because we'd been asked for a while by various publishers to submit country songs to Nashville, and I'd lived in Nashville for a while, and I knew a lot of people over there, and people would say, "Carl, give us a couple of country songs." So when Russell and I get together, while we're on the road and stuff, we'd come up with country melodies and hooks and things, and then we'd finish them, and eventually we got enough for an album. And we thought, you know what, we'll do an album anyway. And with the very worst that'll happen is we'll be able to send the album to Nashville, and people will be able to hear the songs, and maybe they'll record them. But what eventually finished up happening was that the album came out, and people here really seemed to enjoy it. Which, when you consider that, we're both, rock acts, you wouldn't have thought that would have happened, but audiences, I guess, who've been following us around since the 60s are pretty tolerant of our behaviour now.
but so many, Brian, so many Australian artists have done that so well. Jimmy Barnes and Ross Wilson have made some magnificent country music in recent years. So, I think people do enjoy hearing something different from artists that they've grown up with in a rock sort of context.
Yeah, I think you're right. But I also think that those genres have become a lot more legitimised. In other words, when we were coming up, when we were coming up as young pop bands, if we wanted to do an R&B song, we couldn't do it like Otis Redding did it. We'd have to sort of pop it up a bit, you know what I mean? It'd have to be a bit more commercial. But now, all those beautiful R&B classics are now recorded as they should be, in a proper way. Just hold on one second. Sorry. A bit of a cough. So now that genre is appreciated for what it is and what it was. In the same way that country music now has become much more popular overall and across the board. And surprisingly enough, with young people, there's a lot of young country fans out there now too. So I think people are able to say, well, we want to have a bit of a go over here and do a bit of a country thing for a minute. And an audience is much more tolerant than it might have been, say, 20 years ago or 30 years ago.
Good music is good music, no matter what. That's the bottom line. And your book, Brian, is still out there doing very well. From this side of things, you must be really happy how that was received as well.
Yeah, I am. I'm particularly encouraged by that because that was a bit of a leap off the cliff for me. Even though I've written words all my life, they've never been more than 3 minutes worth. And when you have to come up with thousands of them, and they're about you, and they're the premise being that if you're gonna tell a story, you might as well tell the whole story. There's no point in saying, well, I'll just give them the bits that I think they need. You have to tell all the bad bits as well. And so for me, it was a fairly cathartic kind of experience. I had to get all that stuff out of me and down on paper, and then figure out just how far I wanted to go with it all. It was a great journey for me. It wasn't very long. For some reason, the book happened fairly quickly. It was sort of basically over a year, but very much on and off. I didn't sort of sit down for a year and write it. I just wrote it a bunch of times during that year. And I finished up with enough of it for the publishers to say, yeah, that's a good read, and we'll put some pictures in and see how we go. And mercifully, because it was written in a fairly light-hearted manner, it wasn't, depths of despair, and it wasn't sort of debating the finer issues of creativity. It was really telling, a bunch of road stories and why we recorded that and why I wrote that and what happened in this marriage and what didn't happen in this one and all of those, things that people kind of like to get their teeth into a bit. I think it was received because it wasn't a hard read. It was sort of a fun read, and I'm very grateful to the people who bought it and the people who managed to get through it. It's great.
And I agree, Brian. Although there's lots of great stories in there, the underlying feel of the book is that it is good fun and a good read, and that's the underlying feel of when you come and play with Russell Morris, that you cannot come and see you guys play and walk out of the room without a big smile on your face. You're guaranteed to have a great time.
Well, I hope so. I think that's true, and we see it, every night, and it's probably based on the fact that we're having a good time. In fact, I know it is. If we weren't having a good night, a good time, then the chances would be that it'd be difficult for you two as an audience. It'd be hard for you to get going and rocking and having a great time if we were up there just going through the motion and painting by numbers. But we don't do that. We go out there and we have as much fun, if not more fun, than anyone else in the room. And that is very important to us.
I had the pleasure of having Russell on the show maybe the time before last when you guys were here. And one of the things that we spoke about was when he started doing this sort of show that he's been doing with Ronnie and Daryl Cotton over the years. One of the things he said that he really had to learn was to tell stories and to chat to the audience. He'd been in a rock band for so long that he didn't really have to do that. The music did all the work, and he really said that was an interesting learning curve for him to do that.
Yeah. Unfortunately, or fortunately, I was sort of born much more of a blabbermouth than he is. So it was fairly easy for me to spin a few yarns, as it were. It's something that I tend to do. But for him, it was a bit of a learning curve. And boy, gee, he got onto it pretty quick. And I think the reason that it worked for us almost immediately was because we always feel comfortable where we're going. You know, most nights we don't know what we're talking about. You know, we just sort of head off. We have things that we normally say, which are, is supposedly normal intros to songs, but then they get one of, if he's singing, if he's talking, I'll interrupt him with some insulting thing, and then off we'll go somewhere, and most of the time we don't know where we're going, and I think the reason we're capable of doing that is mostly the fact that we've got a soft place to land. We each know that the other one's not going to drop us in it, or is going to walk away and abandon us when we're in the middle of a story. I mean, that we're very supportive of each other on stage and as friends normally anyway. So there's a sort of a feeling of confidence there as we try all this lunacy each night.
And it is lovely to be in the audience and enjoy that lunacy indeed. I just want to finish off, Brian. I had an email from a listener who insisted that I ask you about the soundtrack tune to Alvin Purple, and I remember that it was such a risque movie at the time.
Oh yeah, and I've never been able to get any of our kids to watch. Between us, we have 6 kids, and not one of them has ever sat all the way through it, because to these generations, it's just such a tame old, hard old, nothing happens kind of, that's not even sexy, that's not even risque, that's, by today's standards, it's just sort of almost a comic caricature sort of a thing. But back in those days, I mean, the chicks in the movies, and they were all gorgeous, wonderful chicks, and they spent the vast majority of the filming time was at least their tops off, and it all made it to screen, and those sort of things just didn't happen. Nobody did those sort of things, much less talk about the things that they talked about, and to make a movie based on that premise anyway, which was, really about a bloke who just can't keep his hands off or keeps getting attacked by women, and so it's all only about that anyway. I mean, for its time, it was an incredibly forward-thinking thing to do.
It's a lovely snapshot when you look at it now from back in the 70s, and your tune is a very special part of that. It still brings a smile to people's faces just hearing the tune, I think.
Well, it was meant to. It was sort of meant to. It was because I picked that kind of a country ho-downy kind of thing, based on the fact that I figured it was also a good thing to do for all the many car chases and chases around the beds and stuff like that happen in the movie. But I also wanted it to be fun, and if you like, almost a funny song, not without being a Rolf Harris song, but it needed to have a kind of a real, tongue-in-cheek humour about it, and it worked perfectly for the film. It just seemed to click, and from that moment on, I mean, we wrote the whole soundtrack, and from the moment we wrote that song, everything from then on just sort of clicked in behind it, because we had, if you like, the cornerstone from which we could go out in any direction.
Yes, set the theme indeed. Well, thank you, Brian. It's been a lovely pleasure to say hello, and I look forward to seeing you guys play again, and I can't recommend highly what good fun you and Russell are on stage. If people haven't come and witness you guys at Norwood, they're always in for a treat. So I look forward to it, mate. Thank you so much.
Good on you, man. Thanks, Keith.
Can I get you to do a quick tag for me, please?
Yeah, mate.
My program is called Sitting in a Bar in Adelaide.
That's your what? That's your name?
That's the name of my program.
Righto.
If you could do me something like, this is Brian Cadd and you're listening to Sitting in a Bar in Adelaide, or whatever pops into your head whenever you're ready.
Can I say with Michael Persh?
Of course, that would be fine.
Okay. Hi, this is Brian Cadd, and you're listening to Sitting in a Bar in Adelaide with Michael Persh.
Thank you so much, Brian. I appreciate your time. A great pleasure to say hello, and looking forward to seeing you in town.
Okay, mate.
All the best. Bye-bye.